Overthinking is one of the most common mental struggles of modern life. People think it's a sign of intelligence. They think it means they care deeply. They think it means they are preparing for the future. But according to Buddhist philosophy, overthinking is not intelligence. It is restlessness. It is the mind moving without direction, without clarity, without peace. And more importantly, it is a habit, not a personality trait, which means it can be understood, and what can be understood can be transformed. To understand how to reduce overthinking, we first need to understand what overthinking actually is, because most people misunderstand the problem. Overthinking is not thinking too much. Thinking is natural. Planning is necessary. Reflection is healthy. Overthinking begins when thought loses its usefulness and becomes compulsive. The same thought repeats again and again. The mind replays the past or rehearses the future. No new information is created, but emotional energy keeps draining. According to Buddhist philosophy, the mind is meant to be a tool, but most people live as servants to it. Thoughts arise, and instead of observing them, we get pulled inside them. A memory appears, and suddenly we are reliving it emotionally. A worry appears, and suddenly we are living in a future that doesn't exist yet. The Buddha, Gautama Buddha, taught that suffering does not come from thoughts themselves. Suffering comes from identification with thoughts. This distinction is critical. A thought saying, "What if something goes wrong?" is harmless on its own. The suffering begins when you believe that thought is you, when the thought becomes your identity, your reality, your truth. This is the root of overthinking. Now let's slow down and look at the Buddhist model of the mind. In Buddhism, the mind is not a single solid thing. It is a stream. Thoughts arise, sensations arise, emotions arise, and then they pass away. But the untrained mind clings. It clings to pleasant thoughts, it resists unpleasant ones, and it tries to control what cannot be controlled. Overthinking is the mind trying to create certainty in an uncertain world. The mind says, if I think enough, I can prevent pain. But life does not work that way. The future is uncertain no matter how much you think, so the thinking continues endlessly. Buddhism compares this state to a person stirring water, hoping it will become clear. The more you stir, the murkier it gets. Stillness, not force, creates clarity. This is where Buddhist wisdom becomes extremely practical. Instead of asking, "How do I stop thinking?" Buddhism asks a better question. How do I change my relationship with thinking? This single shift changes everything, because trying to stop thoughts is like trying to stop waves in the ocean. Impossible. But learning to stop drowning in them is possible. The Buddha once used a powerful analogy. He said that a person struck by a physical arrow feels pain. But if that person then shoots themselves with a second arrow, mental resistance, fear, rumination, the suffering doubles. The first arrow is life. The second arrow is overthinking. You don't argue with it. You don't suppress it. You don't follow it. You simply recognize this is a thought. This creates distance, and distance creates freedom. One of the Buddha's most important teachings was this: whatever is subject to arising is subject to passing away. This includes thoughts. Every thought, no matter how intense, will pass if you don't feed it. Overthinking continues only because attention keeps returning to the same thought. Attention is the fuel. Remove the fuel and the fire dies naturally. Now let's talk about impermanence, because it is one of the strongest antidotes to overthinking. The mind overthinks because it believes thoughts are permanent or urgent. But if you observe carefully, thoughts are incredibly unstable. A worry that feels overwhelming now can disappear within minutes when attention shifts. This is not magic, it is impermanence. Buddhism teaches that seeing impermanence clearly weakens attachment. When you know a thought will pass, you don't need to panic. You don't need to solve it immediately. You don't need to obey it. You can wait, and waiting is power. Another major cause of overthinking is resistance to emotions. People don't overthink because they like thinking. They overthink because they don't want to feel. Boredom, loneliness, fear, sadness. Thinking feels safer than feeling. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Feeling fully, without resistance, ends suffering faster than thinking about it. When an emotion arises, the instruction is simple. Notice it in the body. Where is it felt? Is it tightness, heat, pressure? Stay with the sensation. Don't explain it. Don't analyze it. Just observe. When you do this, something surprising happens. The emotion peaks and then dissolves. Overthinking was never needed. Now let's bring in a story from Buddhist tradition. A monk once complained to his teacher that his mind would not stop thinking. The teacher asked him to sit quietly and observe the river nearby. After some time, the teacher asked, "Did you stop the river from flowing?" The monk said, "No." The teacher replied, "Then why are you trying to stop the mind from flowing?" The lesson is subtle. The goal is not to stop thoughts. The goal is to stop identifying with them. This is mental training, not mental violence. Another important Buddhist concept here is non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You can think about a problem without becoming trapped in it. You can plan without obsessing. You can reflect without rumination. Non-attachment is the ability to hold thoughts lightly. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you grip tightly, it escapes faster. If you hold gently, it stays. Thoughts are the same. Overthinking is tight gripping. Awareness is gentle holding. Now let's talk about control. You cannot always avoid the first arrow, but you can learn not to shoot the second one. This is the core of Buddhist psychology. Overthinking is the second arrow. Now let's understand why the mind overthinks in the first place. According to Buddhism, there are three main causes: craving, aversion, and ignorance. Craving means wanting things to be different from how they are. Aversion means resisting what is already happening. Ignorance means not understanding the nature of thoughts and emotions. Overthinking is born when all three combine. You crave certainty, you resist uncertainty, and you don't see thoughts as passing events. So the mind loops. Here's a simple real-life example. You send a message to someone. They don't reply. A thought arises. Did I say something wrong? This is normal. But then the mind grabs it. You replay the conversation. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You assign meaning without evidence. Now the body reacts. Anxiety appears. The loop strengthens. Nothing new is happening in reality. Everything is happening in the mind. Buddhism would say the problem is not the unanswered message. The problem is attachment to the thought about it. Now here's the key Buddhist insight. You do not need to eliminate thoughts to stop overthinking. You need to see them clearly. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is often misunderstood as relaxation, but in Buddhism, mindfulness means clear awareness. It means knowing what is happening in the mind as it is happening. When a thought arises, you notice it.
Most people want to control their thoughts. Buddhism teaches something more effective. Train attention. Attention is where you place awareness. If attention keeps returning to the same thought, overthinking continues. If attention is trained to return to the present moment, overthinking weakens. This is why the Buddha emphasized the breath. Not because breathing is special, but because it anchors attention in the present. You cannot breathe in the past or future. When attention is in the breath, overthinking pauses naturally. Not forever, but enough to see clearly. And clarity is the beginning of change. Now let's address a common fear. People worry that if they stop overthinking, they will become careless. Buddhism says the opposite. A calm mind makes better decisions. Overthinking clouds judgment. Presence sharpens it. Mental quiet is not stupidity. It is intelligence without noise. This is why Buddhist monks, known for simplicity, often display deep wisdom. Their minds are not cluttered. Now let's talk about daily practice. Reducing overthinking is not a one-time insight. It is a habit built through repetition. First practice. Each time you notice overthinking, do not criticize yourself. Simply notice and return attention to something physical. The breath, the sensation of your feet on the ground, sounds in the room. This interrupts the loop. Second practice. Label thoughts. Silently say, planning, worrying, remembering. This creates space. The thought loses authority. Third practice. Limit unnecessary stimulation. Buddhism emphasizes simplicity because constant stimulation feeds restlessness. Silence is not empty, it is restorative. Fourth practice. Accept uncertainty. Overthinking is the mind demanding guarantees. Life does not offer guarantees. Acceptance is not giving up, it is seeing reality clearly. Now let's come to the heart of Buddhist wisdom. The Buddha did not promise a life without problems. He promised a way to suffer less mentally. Overthinking is not a personal failure. It is a misunderstanding of how the mind works. When you see that thoughts are not commands, not truths, not identities, just events, their grip loosens. Gradually, naturally. And one day you notice something quiet but powerful. The mind still thinks, but it no longer traps you. There is space, there is clarity, there is peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting your own mind. And that is the Buddhist path out of overthinking. Not through force, not through suppression, but through understanding. And understanding, according to Buddhism, is the deepest form of freedom.